Howdy doody everyone, Wambu here, but you can say it as Wambu if you'd like. At the time of recording this, Mario Odyssey came out fairly recently. You don't know what that means. It's time to talk about Zelda. While I'm not a humongous fan of the franchise, I've been wanting to tackle Zelda on this channel for a while. One of my favorite things to do when playing games is examining the choices that go into level design, and The Legend of Zelda is one of my favorite franchises for doing this, given that every game has cool, puzzle-heavy areas with very creative thematics. And since I'm a fan of the 3D games in particular, the 3D dungeons are going to be the topic for this list. Some of you may be wondering now, oh, but what about levels that aren't dungeons, like temples or fortresses or the insides of a whale? Fuck off, you know what I mean, they're all eligible. I'm just using dungeons as a blanket term. Also, I'm going to be singling out my favorite dungeons from each of these games, which narrows it down to a top 6 rather than a top 10. Understand? You guys understand? I don't think you guys understand. Fuck it, let's go. I'm sure I may have already raised an eyebrow or two by acknowledging Breath of the Wild on a list like this, given that it's not really about the dungeons. In fact, you could play this game for hours on end without even touching any parts that could be thought of as traditional Zelda dungeons, unless you count the shrines, which... no, I don't. As someone who really loves looking at dungeons in particular, this was kinda disappointing for me, but you know what? I will settle just fine for 4 giant robotic animals. Functionally and architecturally, they're all kinda similar, so there's not all that much room to rank one over the rest, and yet for some odd reason, Vambu ended up being the one that I was most fond of. To be honest, of all the 4 major races in Breath of the Wild, the story with the Rito was probably the least fleshed out. And yet, I couldn't help but find their divine beast to be the most enjoyable. Maybe it was my love for the wind element, or maybe it was just because I like birds. Birds are cool. One thing I can say with certainty, though, is that aesthetically, this one was my favorite. Okay, I know I've got a paraglider, but this is still pretty frightening. Look at this. Look at how high I am. The jokes really do write themselves sometimes. But really though, the altitude is a big part of why I love this place, and it helps that it's littered with some pretty clever wind puzzles where you actually open up the different parts of the beast. The big mechanic with this one though is the ability to tilt Vambu in different directions, which is normally used to just soar your way through the dungeon and reach places you very much wouldn't be able to on the normal axis. In my opinion, it's easily one of the funner uses of the paragliding that the game has to offer. Some people criticize it for being easier than the other divine beasts, which is fair, but I'm fine with the dungeon not being super headache-inducing, so long as it still appeals to my incredibly simple-minded modes of entertainment. Which, you know, this very much does. I do wish that the outside portions were used for more than just the boss fight and a couple of updrafts, but, can't really complain. It's a good dungeon. Wind Waker was kind of a weird game for me to pick from, because on one hand, Wind Waker is my absolute favorite Zelda game, but on the other hand, the collection of dungeons felt more solid, if anything else. None too great, but none too bad either. I enjoy Wind Waker more for its grand sense of adventure and its lively, cartoony visual style that gives a ton of vibrancy to the world and its characters. Thing is, though, I make YouTube videos. I need something that's a little more dead inside. Yeah, baby, that's the ticket. A lot of people hate this place for being kinda gray and ugly compared to the rest of Wind Waker. These people are wrong. Objectively. I personally commend dungeons that can be as dour and sour as my soul. I'm kidding, positive vibes are good. Be nice to others, or you're a fucking moron. Real talk though, there are probably quite a few reasons to not like the Earth Temple. Namely, that it's a dungeon with creepy thematics that really isn't very scary. Okay, yeah, it has redeads, but redeads in any game or place make for a pretty quality laxative. I always saw the Earth Temple as something more akin to a haunted house attraction. It's spooky, but in a way that makes it more endearing rather than actually scary. This is especially true with the goofy-looking enemies. I love the pose in particular, and how they just run away with their upper bodies enemies flailing behind them. That's just adorable to me. I also love how the darkest dungeon in the game is almost entirely wrapped around the idea of light. From enemies like Dark Choo-Choos and the aforementioned Pose and Redeads, to the interesting puzzles that become more intricate once you get the Mirror Shield. To me, it ended up being a very cohesive experience. I think what really divides people on this dungeon, though, is the inclusion of Medley as your partner throughout, which is perfectly reasonable. I did not want another Princess Ruto situation. For what it's worth, though, Medley is notably more manageable, more interesting, and a whole lot more likable. Dare I say I actually liked having Medley along. Oh, the benefits of low expectation. I want to start this next entry with a confession. It's a scary one, but I just gotta say it. I gotta rip it as if it were a band-aid. Here we go. Majora's Mask is my least favorite 3D Zelda game. Oh boy. This is difficult for me to say, not because it's unpopular or because I'm hyper afraid of rustling some jimmies, but because I want to like it a lot more, even though I still do very much like it. I won't go into full detail on why I didn't enjoy the game as much as a bunch of other people did, but I will say that one of the big reasons is that I didn't really enjoy the selection of dungeons very much. Fret not, though, because within my downright blasphemous point of view lies an actually pretty popular opinion. For you see, there was one dungeon in this game that proudly displayed its greatness to the world, and the world very much answered back. One could say it towered over the competition. Certified comedic genius over here, that's me. Oh look, here comes Wambu being the 200 billionth person to praise Stone Tower Temple on the internet. Motherfucker, you know it. Now let me just get this out of the way. Even the best have some not very good things about it. The initial climb prior to entering the temple itself isn't very fun, and even within the temple there are still quite a few moments of tedium. But if you can get past that, and you're not looking to be as contrarian as possible, you're in for one of the most interesting and creative dungeons that the franchise has to offer. On the surface, it's an engaging test of what you've learned in Majora's Mask thus far. Most people think of Stone Tower as a light-based dungeon, which it is, but really it includes puzzles involving many elements, meaning the player is constantly using the different transformations of Link to some effect. Now, a dungeon that provides a very full Majora's Mask experience on its own would make a pretty big contender for the list, but give it just one curveball, and suddenly the dungeon just becomes the best fucking thing, you guys. Check it out. Ready? Bam! Now be honest. How much better did my video just get? Actually, I can imagine this looks pretty dumb, but when Stone Tower does it, it's amazing. And it's not Link that turns upside down. No. It's the world. Rocks are suddenly falling into the sky, all the rooms that previously had water don't anymore, and you're left exploring the whole dungeon again, standing on what was formerly the ceiling. I swear, shit like this is what makes analyzing level design a trip. One of the other criticisms of Stone Tower, though, is that there are quite a lot of switches that require the use of Elegy of Emptiness, meaning you'll basically be playing the song over and over again until your fingers snap off like twigs. And yeah, that's a fair criticism, but like I said earlier, you gotta be able to look past certain things. And once you do, Stone Tower, it's something amazing. Skyward Sword. Either you love it or you hate it. And by that I mean you guys either love it or hate it, while I remain the one person in the entire universe that just sort of finds it good but not amazing. However you feel about the game though, I think there are at least a few things the majority of us can agree on, like the timey-wimey bullshit in the Lanayru province. And, you know, the Ancient Cistern. I'll be real with ya, I was originally gonna stick it on the list, but timey-wimey bullshit won me over. Take it away, Sandship. I really don't think Skyward Sword gets enough credit for how conceptually interesting a lot of the dungeons are, but if we're looking for that fine mix of idea and execution, the outing to find the Nehru's Sacred Flame sees you invade an actual pirate ship to save a crew of robot men while fighting Bokublins, Pirates of the Caribbean style, on top of the masts. Oh. Well, fuck, I'm already sold. But there's still more to talk about here. The big centerpiece is the time shift stone that overlooks the rest of the dungeon. Early in, you fight in what is easily one of the cooler mini-boss fights in the game, the captain of the ship, and you receive a bow and arrow. From this point, you're able to change the ship from its past and present iterations from different points on the interior and exterior of the ship. Based on whatever state the ship is in, certain walls might be blocked off, certain enemies might come alive, and you also need to power the ship, which you can only do in past form. So you need to be constantly hitting the time shift stone to suit your needs. Also, don't get it confused. The past is where everything is all shiny and futuristic looking, while the present is where everything is fucking dead and broken. Not all that confusing, but trust me, it's easy to get it mixed around. But yeah, I really do love this place. I was already pretty impressed with the time-shifting mechanics in Lanayru before, but you add a pirate ship into the mix, and what more praise can I really give it? Also, no, I'm not playing the stupid pirate song from Lazy Town. I see those looks you guys are giving me, I'm not doing it. We're moving on. I said no! Probably the most anticipated entry on the list, now is the time to pick my favorite dungeon from Ocarina of Time. Depending on who you ask, Ocarina of Time is either a timeless masterpiece or the most overrated game, potentially the most overrated thing in existence. Me personally, I'm in the timeless masterpiece camp. Ocarina of Time was not the hardest to pick from, but it's the entry that I'm probably the least secure in. The wires that run through my brain really did try to justify any other choice, but inevitably, they would short-circuit and catch fire. When going to do this list, I figured that surely I would have more to say about something like the Spirit Temple or the Shadow Temple, and yet I couldn't turn a blind eye to the dungeon that has remained my favorite since the first time I experienced the game. Temple starts and boom, you learn that a giant dragon has been eating the Gorons and a legendary hammer is needed to defeat it. What follows is one of the more straightforward dungeons in the game, and that just might be exactly what I love about it. There isn't really any sort of reoccurring thing that ties the whole dungeon together, like the Poe hunt in the Forest Temple, or the water levels in the Water Temple. Nothing to really think all that hard on. Find the Gorons, get the hammer, hit stuff with the hammer, don't fucking die. I really do love the hazards that this dungeon throws at you as well, some of which involves creative uses of fire, like fire totems, firewalls that chase you, fire mazes, fire dancers, and then there's the random bullshit that has nothing to do with fire, like these boulders that I swear just have a mind of their own, or this. What the hell was that?
You got attacked by a door, kid. You got a fucking problem.
As a matter of fact, I do. Fucking asshole door. And really, the entire dungeon is filled with all these rooms and obstacles that I just remember vividly for one reason or another. I guess this is, for me, the palate cleansing dungeon. No bullshit, just a straight punch of cool aesthetics, exciting obstacles, straightforward heroism, and good goddamn gameplay. Fire Temple. For most, a pretty dungeon, and probably for good reason. But for me, the best among many classics. And now we've arrived at the absolute hardest choice I had to make for this list. What is my favorite dungeon from Twilight fucking Princess? This game, right now, has probably my absolute favorite collection of dungeons. With the exception of one, I liked all of them. So picking one to go on this list was absolutely maddening. How about the Lakebed Temple? No, that's a good one, but not quite my favorite. No, wait, I know. Temple of Time. Temple of fucking Time! Maybe? But what about Arbiter's Grounds, Wambu? Everyone loves Arbiter's Grounds. You can't say no to it. Oh my god, I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. The answer will come to me. I just gotta chill for a bit. Now we're talking. Snow Peak Ruins hits so many marks for me that I'm honestly pretty lost at where to start. I guess I'll say that it's not really the sort of Zelda dungeon that most people would be used to. Well, that's because it takes place in a mansion, Wambu. Thank you, disembodied voice of a viewer that's clearly too smart for me. Yes, it is a mansion, one that belongs to two Yetis whose narratives are interwoven into the progression of this dungeon. Yetta, the smaller and more adorable of the two, has come down with an illness that they believe is being caused by the mirror shard that you came here to get. So hey, that's convenient and all. You need a mirror shard and they need to get rid of one. So it all works out. Problem is that they've locked it away in their own bedroom and Yetta can't remember where the key is. So she sends you to different parts of the mansion where she thinks it is. Pumpkin! Fucking pumpkin! How the fuck is this supposed to help me? Goat cheese? Oh yeah, this is good. Joking aside though, the food does actually serve a purpose as well. See, while Yetta is sick, Yetto, the big fuck your shit up Yeti, is making soup, which recovers more and more hearts for Link the more ingredients you get. And by the way, this is the only way to recover health in the dungeon. The hearts that you would ordinarily find scattered throughout the world? Nope, not here. Yeti soup. That is your savior. Another reason that I just adore this dungeon is... fuck, man, the ball and chain is awesome. Not only is it just a powerhouse that one-shots a bunch of enemies in the game, but for this dungeon in particular, it's just fun as hell. It smashes ice walls, helps you keep your traction on icy floors, moves platforms, blocks projectiles, breaks suits of armor, and other unnecessary property damage. That last one is my favorite ability. It's a bit cumbersome, but I'm enjoying this too much to care. Also, I haven't really counted bosses on this list, but I will say that I do love it as a good wrap-up to both this dungeon and the story with the two Yetis. Wait, is that where all the hearts went? Motherfucker, you're lucky this love story was cute.